Monopolistic competition. Question 1. The coffee industry is a typical example of monopolistic competition. We know this because the article states there, A. Is a high level of competition in the industry with low barriers to entry, and with each coffee business selling the same type of coffee. B. Is a low level of competition in the industry with medium barriers to entry, and with each coffee business selling coffee that differs in quality. C. Is a low level of competition in the industry with high barriers to entry, and with each coffee business selling coffee that differs in quality. Or D. Is a high level of competition in the industry with low barriers to entry, and with each coffee business selling coffee that differs in quality. Initially, both options B and C can be dismissed, as monopolistic competition is comprised of a high level of competition seen through its characteristic of free entry, which allows new firms to enter the market due to its low barriers to entry, thus increasing the amount of firms existing firms must compete against. Although option A states a high level of competition with low barriers of entry, it also states that each coffee business sells the same type of coffee. This is not synonymous to a monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition is defined as a market structure in which many firms sell products that are similar but not perfect substitutes, hence being one of its main attributes product differentiation, which is each firm produces a product that is slightly different, not the same, from those of other firms, thus differentiating their products to achieve a competitive advantage within the market. Therefore, the answer is D. A high level of competition in the industry, with low barriers to entry, and with each coffee business selling coffee that differs in quality. As it is evident within a monopolistic competition, there exists a high level of competition with new firms entering the market due to the low barriers to entry. This is supported by the quote, "A growing number of small specialty cafes and coffee shops have resulted in a high level of competition in the industry, which is characterized by low barriers to entry and low industry concentration." Additionally, the attribute of product differentiation affirms that each coffee business selling coffee differs in quality. This is ultimately achieved through the use of advertisement, as each firm has the incentive to make consumers brand aware of its product.
Monopolistic competition. Question 2. The article states that Starbucks had to close down many of its stores because they were unable to compete with the Australian palette. Suppose that an individual coffee supplier was in a long-run equilibrium before Starbucks closed its stores. Which graph would best represent the individual coffee supply situation in the short run after Starbucks closed its stores, assuming that the coffee supply is profit maximizing? The black lines represent the original long-run equilibrium, whereas the red lines represent the short-run impact of Starbucks leaving the country. If Starbucks had left the coffee industry, it would mean that consumers are left with much less choices. The firms left over in the market would benefit greatly from Starbucks' former customers and experience an increase in demand. This will lead to a shift to the demand curve, and thus the marginal revenue curve would also shift due to this change of demand. In option A and B, we can see that demand actually contracts and moves to the left instead of expanding. Thus, we can conclude that both A and B are false. Before we continue to answer the question, we need to make a few assumptions. As established before, we knew that the firm is in a monopolistically competitive market. We also have to make the assumption that the coffee industry follows a pattern of diminishing marginal products, which leads to marginal costs increasing. We also have to assume that there is no price discrimination used, which leads to all the price set being the same. Now we get to the answer of the question. So, to maximize profits, firms in the market has to follow the profit maximization quantitative formula. That is, the marginal revenue must equal to the marginal cost curve. We can find the quantity of how much is produced by finding the intersection of these two marginal curves to find the quantity. So far, both C and D are correct. However, in a monopolistic competitive firm, the price is determined by its own demand curve as it is not a price taker and follows its own demand curve. In the short run, firms would raise its price to the demand curve to take advantage of the market. From here, we can see that if we follow the quantity to the demand curve, here, we can see that the price increases. The price also satisfies the requirement that it is higher than the average total cost curve in order to make a profit. Thus, D is incorrect and C is the right answer.
Question 3. In the article, Rob indicates that local operators are able to compete with larger chains through the use of value-added offerings such as customer loyalty cards or coffee and meal specials. What degree of price discrimination would you best describe this as? A. First degree, B. Second degree, or C. Third degree? First, we have to define price discrimination. Price discrimination is when a firm with market power charges different prices to consumers for an identical product. There are three main types: first degree, second degree, and third degree. First degree price discrimination, also known as perfect price discrimination, occurs when a firm charges a different price for every unit consumed. The firm is able to charge the maximum possible price for each unit, which enables the firm to capture all available consumer surplus for itself through pricing down the demand curve. Therefore, first degree would not be the best price discrimination for describing how local operators are able to compete with larger chains through adding value-added offerings, as it is not charging maximum price that the consumer is willing to pay for a specific unit. Moreover, the first degree price discrimination is not only rare but unrealistic, as the income elasticity of demand should equal to zero, allowing for perfect discrimination. And if consumers were to know prices would drop if their willingness to buy would also drop, first degree price discrimination would be invalid. Now we skip to third degree price discrimination. It's the most frequent price discrimination and involves charging different prices for the same product in segments of the market. It is linked directly to the consumer's willingness to pay for a good or service. Third degree price discrimination can only be achieved through identifying two or more submarkets and keeping these markets separate. Although the most frequent price discrimination, this is not the best for describing the local operator's ability to compete with larger chains, as the local operators are not charging different prices for the same product, as well as segmenting the market in either demographics, i.e. child, adult, or pensioner, location, i.e. domestic or overseas pricing, or time, i.e. lunchtime specials or peak or off-peak times. Lastly, second-degree price discrimination. Second-degree price discrimination, also known as non-linear pricing, occurs when a company charges different prices for different quantities consumed, such as quantity discounts on bulk purchases. Essentially, setting prices based on the amount bought. The answer of question 3 is B. Second-degree price discrimination, as it is the best price discrimination to describe how local operators have the ability to compete with larger chains. This is seen through the value-added offerings of special coffee and meals, as it is the firm's bulk sales strategy of charging different prices for different quantities consumed, thus allowing consumers to choose what best suits them.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, I will now take you through the discussion part of monopolistic competition. In the article, Lin indicates that local operators are able to compete with larger chains through the use of value-added offerings, such as customer loyalty cards or coffee and meal specials. The question asks us, what are the other types of price discrimination could coffee establishments use? As a start, we now need to define what exactly is value adding. Value adding or value added offering simply describes the enhancements a company gives its product or service before offering the product to customers. Since the monopolistic market structure sells similar products but not identical, value added provides potential customers with a feature or add-on that gives it a greater perception of value. This can be done simply by branding a product or how the product is assembled. In a sense, there are a few things to look at when value is added to a product. That is, we must assess the difference between gross revenue for an industry and the sum of labor, materials, and services purchased to produce that good in order to generate revenue. In other words, how much a customer pays, the sales price, in relation to how much a business pays for raw materials, the cost price. As discussed earlier from the previous question, there are three types of price discrimination. Briefly, the first degree of price discrimination, alternatively known as perfect price discrimination, occurs when a firm charges a different price for every unit consumed, which is also commonly known as price skimming. The second degree means charging a different price for different quantities, such as quantity discounts for bulk purchases. The third degree of price discrimination means charging a different price to different consumer groups. For example, rail and tube travelers can be subdivided into commuter and casual travelers, and cinema goers can be subdivided into adults and children. As such, there are many price discrimination strategies that could be implemented. The use of coffee cup coupons is one example, where firms are able to give selected customers discounts on any purchases. Age discounts or student cards is also another method that could be used, that due to a firm wanting to maximize profit and quantity, certain levels in society are only willing to pay less or more for a good than others. Time or month of purchase can be also another price discrimination method. For example, the seasonal changes of summer and winter can be added. In relation to price discrimination can uphold certain benefits to firms and customers as well as disadvantages. These include profit maximization, where matching prices to specific characteristics of the market; economies of scale, where firms can benefit from the economies of scale which arise from increasing output and production, ultimately reducing costs; efficient use of infrastructure, better use of space; benefits to customers, possibility of lower prices; benefits to groups of consumers, and also enables flexibility. The disadvantages, however, are exploitation to captive markets, limitations where the ability to price discrimination may be limited because the conditions necessary are not fully met. Since there are low barriers to entry for monopolistic firms in comparison to larger coffee chains, these smaller firms are able to sustain a competitive advantage over rivalry competition. Therefore, discrimination is only worth undertaking if the profit from separating the market is greater than from keeping the markets combined, and this will depend upon the relative elasticities of demand in the submarket.